Hey folks, Blackcross here with another discussion video. Today's discussion video, I want to go ahead and try to talk about Final Fantasy 15 release date being in 2016. Now, this is old news to some degree because most of us found out about this information right around, I want to say between August and September. It was during the time in which D23 happened in the US. So, Square Enix was basically announcing that there will be more detail, as well the official release date for Final Fantasy 15 in March of 2016. So, for most Final Fantasy fans, this is great news because it means that now we'll actually get to know when the game will be officially released. And from the way it sounds like that they currently are finishing up, basically brushing up all the dust from on top of it, and it's getting ready to be put into production, I say. More than likely, because according to what this news article says, it says here, this year is the year we'll release Final Fantasy 15. Tabata, I do apologize if I mispronounce some of these names, said in a new issue of Fasumu, as reported by Nova Chrysola. Currently, we've decided on all of its specifics, and the beta version is under production, so we can shift into the debug phase. Now, this may sound like a little bit much to explain on, but I'll try to kind of decipher what it means. It means that they're right now currently working on a beta version of the game in which beta testers can go on ahead and start playing the game to see and to make certain that everything looks good and that there are no glitches, no anything that needs to be brushed up or fixed up, so on and so forth. Basically, beta testers will finally be able to test the game fully to see if it's ready to be put into production. So after that, it won't be far before Square Enix can finally make an official announcement as to when the game will officially be released. Now, as to when it will be released, I kind of have some ideals. Because most people believe that since it's going to be talked about in March, chances are it will probably be released sometime during the summer. That's not always the case, but I can kind of see why most people would say that. I have my own theory, of course, and that is the fact that basically Square Enix has 3 anticipated games in their belt, like literally the most anticipated games ever. Seriously, I don't think any company has ever had that many anticipated games in their lives. 3 games, it's one thing to say 1 or 2, but 3, I think that is quite a lot. You got Final Fantasy 15, which was technically Final Fantasy 1st to 13. Then you have Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which is highly anticipated because everyone has been kind of angst up and is wondering if it's going to be as good or if it's going to be... I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what they're going to do for it, because of the fact that it's going to be done differently than most previous Final Fantasy games have been, being released in an episodic parts. And then of course you've got Kingdom Hearts 3, which has been talked about for I think almost 10 years now. Almost 10 years. It will be for Japan, but for us it'll be almost 10 years, so it's kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like one of those, okay, so this is what's going on, we're finally getting somewhere. As far as I know, in terms of, like, how long it's been since these games were first talked about, Kingdom Hearts 3 was the longest. Then it was it was 7 that was discussed. When Square Enix pulled off that whole Final Fantasy 7 on PlayStation 3 bit. That ticked off a lot of people back then. But back then, it was only stated that it was only to show the capability of the PlayStation 3, which it did its job, but unfortunately that kind of pissed off a lot of people, because when something was shown at E3, that gave the intentional idea that, hey, this can be a real thing. And for the longest time, people have been asking for an actual Final Fantasy VII remake. And I think, had they not have done that, I think they would have been in better position. But they basically screwed themselves on that deal, I believe. In my personal opinion, they did. But they're finally making it. And then Versus 13 was talked about either on the same year or the year after that. I don't remember, quite frankly. I forgot recently. But when Final Fantasy 13 was being made, all these other games was being talked about. But of all the games, Versus 13 was the most discussed out of all of these games. Because they were talking about being in production, then they talked about trying to lay out the groundworks. I wouldn't say they were in development for the longest time, but it's been talked about for the longest time. And the fact that they're now finally finishing it up, it's kind of one of those, like, third world reality type things where you're like, oh shit, it's actually happening. Because, let's face it, Square Enix kind of screwed themselves whenever they set them standards to the highest degree, because that means that now people expect more out of the company. And that can sometimes be a good thing, but sometimes that can backfire. Especially whenever you got games that have been in development for, at this rate, 3 or 4 years. I'm looking at the team for Kingdom Hearts 3. And it kind of makes you wonder what's going on, really. Because, on the one hand, most companies do work on multiple projects. They usually separate them in different categories, like you got the Final Fantasy team, and then you got the Kingdom Hearts team. But then you got these details in which basically was stated that the team of Kingdom Hearts is helping the Final Fantasy team work on Final Fantasy VII Remake. What? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. What? Now, there's actually a reason why this was stated. See, both teams are different in terms of development stages. From what I've heard, Kingdom Hearts 3 was originally going to be on a previous style of hard drive style. I forgot what it was called, but lately they decided to change that and stick with the Unreal engine, the Unreal 4 engine. And then when Final Fantasy VII was being discussed about being made and everything like that, they decided to go ahead and do the Unreal 4 engine. Now, technically, Final Fantasy 15 was not done in the Unreal 4 engine. It was done on the previous one that they have been using for the longest time on the PlayStation 3. But after looking at Kingdom Hearts team's project, they decided, okay, well, we should do the Unreal 4 engine, right? But they're not very well aware about its system. So they're asking the Kingdom Hearts team to help them with this project. Basically show them what they can and can't do. What is okay, what is not okay, what to expect from the system itself. And that can be a good thing, because that means that you got multiple people, you got multiple expertise working on a big game. At the same time, I feel like Kingdom Hearts 3 is now getting the least attention, even though it's been the most talked about for the longest time. I feel it's been the most talked about. I mean, most of us believe that ever since Kingdom Hearts 2, when the majority of us beat the game, when we saw that teaser trailer at the end of the game when we beat it, we pretty much assumed that there was going to be a third Kingdom Hearts game. Only to, lo and behold, that was actually a Burst by Sleep game. But that continued to rise as Kingdom Hearts 3 was being the most talked about. And the more trailers they show us, the more that the majority of us is kind of like, wondering, are we even going to see a Kingdom Hearts 3? Which, I still hope we do. In fact, I still have high hopes that there is a possibility that it could still be released this year, but it won't be until, like, December. But don't take that out of content. Just take that as me thinking, which may be having high hopes in my case, because that's all I've got is high hopes. Even though it's kind of dwindled down since then. But the point is that the Final Fantasy team has finally finished up with 15's production and is now being put into the testing stage, which it won't be long before we'll actually know when the release date will be. Now, I could be wrong. For all I know, it could be released during the summertime. But I feel like August and September is probably the best month for Final Fantasy games to be released. Especially the mainstream. Sequels, prequels, and side stories, they usually get thrown around in every direction. Final Fantasy mainstream, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, then 16, 17, whatever number it will be next time, I feel like those games usually get released during the fall. I think so, because you got multiple people who are fixing to go to school, and then you got the fact that most people are... let's put it this way. Most gamers know that the springtime is the least amount of time for gamers to be hyped up for. And that's not being mean, that's being truthful. The majority of games usually get released during the later seasons. If they do get released in the middle of the fall, it's usually right around E3 time period. You know, right after E3, because then they get to announce that, hey, guess what? This game's going to be released next week. And gamers are like, oh shit. And they gotta get ready and pre-order it or prep up for it, whatever the case may be. But I think Final Fantasy 15 will be a fall season game. I think so. Because they'll release the release date in March. Then at E3, they can prep it up by showing more details to it. And then the following fall, the game will be released. I think that's the planning ideal of it. At least from what I've seen thus far. I could be wrong. They could easily release the game before E3. Or either a week after E3. I don't know. At this rate, none of us really knows from the top of our heads. But hopefully, by the time it gets to March, we will know when we will see an official release date. And you can be sure that there will definitely be a trailer reaction video for Final Fantasy 15 when it finally gets released. But anyway, though, I felt like I wanted to go ahead and do a discussion video on Final Fantasy 15's official release date. I know it's kind of weird, but that's basically what it is. It's a release date for the release date. So sometime in March, keep your ears and eyes open for a trailer for Final Fantasy 15. And I will catch you in the next video. Until then, this is Black Cross signing off. Take care, guys.